to me, one of the biggest reasons I used to get so mad on the golf course and have such a poor mental game was because I just had the incorrect expectations. I always thought I had to hit this many fairways and hit this many greens. But then when I started to kind of get into golf writing and really becoming, an avid tournament player, I started to learn like, wow, even the best players in the world only hit like 60% of the fairways and like 65% of the greens. And you start to realize like, maybe I just have the wrong expectations. And so when you start to understand that for the PGA Tour, it really like kind of frees you up because you don't have that, expectation where you're like, man, I got to hit this many fairways, this many greens. That's like a hidden benefit to me of kind of learning the numbers behind golf. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Managing your expectations is one of the things that I've written and talked quite a bit about. And I think sometimes people have a misconception. They think managing your expectations is lowering your expectations, and that's not at all what it means. Every single shot that you step up to, I want you to try as hard as you possibly can to execute that shot exactly how you want to. But you have to realize and understand that that's not always going to happen. It doesn't happen for the best players in the world. And so having expectations that are realistic for your skill level is really important. And that's why tracking stats can really help you to understand that. One of the common problems that amateur players have is they get a wedge in their hand, they're 100 yards in the fairway, and they think they should be hitting every green and knocking it close a good chunk of the time. And when they don't, they get upset. And if you were tracking stats, you would be able to quantify how good of a wedge player you are. And what I've seen happen is there are some players that they think that they are a really poor wedge player, but they're actually a fantastic wedge player. And because their expectations are so out of line, when they hit a quote unquote poor shot, that does not meet their extremely high expectations, they start to get hard on themselves and they start to react to that. And ironically, that can start to hurt your game. So by having expectations that are aligned with your skills, that can help you to play better golf. And I've received literally hundreds and hundreds of direct messages and emails from people that said, like, after I adopted that approach to playing golf, it made the game so much easier and my scores got better because I was not beating myself up every single time that, I missed a green or, didn't make a 9-foot putt, because I'm not going to make all of those. So it's a pretty powerful part of the game, in that if you effectively manage your expectations, you can play better golf because of it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I first learned that like 8-foot stat, like the PGA Tour is 50-50 from 8 feet. You're like, wow, how is that possible? These are the best players. They got putting coaches, custom fit equipment, and it just starts to reset your expectations. Because I know so many times early in my career, I'd throw a dart, I got 8 feet, I miss it, then I beat myself up, and it's just like knowing these things can really kind of just free you up a little bit. And you talked a little bit too about strokes gained. So before we kind of get into different areas of the game, can you explain strokes gained just for the people that maybe haven't quite understood it yet, or just getting into stat tracking?
Yeah, sure. Strokes gained. And if you don't understand what strokes gained is, don't feel bad. There's a lot of people that don't. There's a friend of mine a few years ago. He's a fantastic player. He played Division I college golf. He's played in multiple USGA events. And he called me up the one day, we were chatting golf. He had some questions for me, and he said, man, you got to explain strokes gained to me. I just don't understand what it is. So if that's you, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that don't understand it. It essentially is a measurement of how you are performing against a baseline. That's maybe a fancy way to say, let me give an example. This might be a better way. From 168 yards in the fairway, a PGA Tour player will average about 3 shots. And so what we've done with strokes gained, and this happens on the PGA Tour, this happens in Arccos with amateur players, is from every distance in every lie, we look at all of the shots from that distance in that lie. So we were talking about 168 yards in the fairway for tour players. We go and we get all of those, and then we see how many shots it took them to hole out from that distance in that lie. We average them out, And that's the average number of shots to get in the hole from that distance and that lie. And now, depending on where you end up, we rinse and repeat and do the same thing to see if you've gained strokes or lost strokes. So let's continue with our 168-yard example for a tour pro. They take 3 shots on the average from that distance. From 8 feet on the green, a tour pro averages 1.5 putts. And so if you have a tour pro standing in the fairway 168 yards away and they hit that ball to 8 feet, they started in a position where they were 3 shots from the hole on the average, and they finished in a spot where they're only 1.5 shots from the hole. And so they took one swing, and now they're only 1.5 shots from the hole. They've essentially gained a half shot on that swing. Now, the opposite would be true. If they ended up in a spot where they were 2.5 shots from the hole, let's say they just missed the green and they're in the fairway, however many yards from the hole, where it's going to be 2.5 shots, they would have lost a half a shot on that swing, on that approach swing. And we just continue to do that for every swing, and we're able to calculate how many strokes you've gained or lost each time you hit the ball.